Thanks, Dean Clarkson, and thanks for those kind words. It's one of the great honors of my life so far to introduce Dara Wier, Professor Dara Wier. She's a poet and professor in the renowned MFA program at the University of Massachusetts in Amherst. She's the author of 11 books of poetry, included Selected Poems, Remnants of Hannah, Reverse Rapture, and Hat on a Pond. Her awards include the Poetry Center and Archives Book of the Year Award, the Pushcart Prize, the American Poetry Review's Jerome Shestack Prize, and fellowships from the National Endowment for the Arts, the Guggenheim Foundation, and the Massachusetts Cultural Council. She's a co-founder and co-editor of the Juniper Initiative for Literary Arts in Action. Professor Wier's poetry defies the physics of the mundane by moving both inward and outward simultaneously. Wier scoops up and arranges the familiar while propagating the unfamiliar and the impossible, putting these elements into conversations, arguments, marriages, and barroom brawls. In one of her poems, she writes, "I have put together this world of 50,000 pieces. I have looped nets trawlers pull to bring life from underwater." She recovers and uncovers the lives we don't know we had and those that we do, but rarely take the time to appreciate, as is evident in her poem, Awe of Everything, in which a question posed in the beginning of the poem is never answered as the poet notices the magical and practical surrounding her everywhere, which at the same time answer the question fully. The New York Times recently called the Pioneer Valley, quote, arguably the most author-saturated, book-cherishing, literature-celebrating place in the nation. There are many factors at work in that diagnosis, but Wier is certainly one of the most important. Her teaching and mentorship of emerging writers is mind-bogglingly successful, and they flock to her. UMass MFA students and graduates are publishing and are involved in publishing at an astounding rate, which is a strong testament to the essentialness of her work and her life, especially here at UMass. Please help me welcome Professor Dara Wier.
Oh, God. It's awesome to be looking at all of you. So thank you so much for inviting me to talk to you this morning, and I hope your day here is as good as it looks like it should be. I was kind of excited to be asked to do a keynote address. I've never done a keynote address before, and I like the word key, and use the word key as often as I can when I talk about changing the key so that something gives us a new way of appreciating or looking at something. And that's what I claimed I was going to talk to you about today, so I'll go right at it. I once knew a man who believed that when he talked to you, the words coming out of his mouth came out as physical objects. So when he talked to you, he continually backed up because there had to be room for him between you and the objects of the words that he was speaking. So the way I figure it, by the time I'm done, if I believe this, I'll be about in Boston. But I've always thought that that was a magical thing that he believed that. So we choose to move from place to place. We don't choose to speed up or slow down time's passing. Even if we experience time sometimes very up close and personal, as if this is interminable, or this seems as if it is going to last forever, or as in, it all happens so fast. And it's worthwhile to consider, in the past, time doesn't really any longer exist. Time only exists now, and when we picture a future for it to come. Our experiences of place and time are so personal. Here's something I experienced in the past. One day I was reading a book, and my then 9-year-old son walked into the room, and this is what he said. He said, what makes these words coming out of my mouth make sense? And when he said that, I thought, he's off to a brilliant start. Because he was asking a really good question. And when we ask good questions, that's when we begin to feel alive and feel the kinds of things that asking those questions allow us to have. And for a long time, there weren't even schools anywhere, you know? Nothing. One would learn how to read or learn almost anything that a day's labor didn't teach them. They had to be aristocrats or practicing a religious vocation to be truly educated. Ordinary people, which is to say most of the population of our planet, didn't have tutors or access to so-called higher education, something that we take for granted. And I'm glad we do. Almost all education, but the most rarefied and hard one, was explicitly trade-based, and most often handed down through a family. Farmers' children farmed, butchers' kids butchered, fishermen's offspring fished, shoemakers' children made shoes, haulers hauled, and executioners' boys grew up to be executioners. Money tenders and lenders' progeny handled money. Horse traders' kids traded horses. Mostly, almost no one questioned what he or she was doing and why he or she was doing it. On the one hand, you might say, well, that certainly simplified things. And in one way, you're right about that. People had very few choices then. And we have so many more choices now in all areas. If you stop and think about it, think of from what you have to choose. So it becomes ever more important to know how to choose. And it seems to me that you're having chosen to come here today and to take part in this conference indicates something about your choices and choosing and how you will most likely continue to be aware of the choices that you have. I mean, I choose of my own free will. I chose to leave my birthplace and my family and all I knew and loved and come and live and work far away from what I knew. I wanted to come to work here ever since I was just out of high school. A kind of long-term romantic dream of mine it was. This is because this is what I thought, where I thought everything about literature and poetry lived in America at the time. Of course, I've learned more than that since then, but it was still a good dream to have. I'm not from here. I'm from where schools barely exist, where literature and books, when there are any, are isolated to these three categories: pest control, mosquito and fly attacks, vermin, every kind of poisonous snake you can imagine, chemical plants, as poisonous ones as possible, and Catholic prayer books, mostly only on Sundays and in cemeteries. And this pretty much covered it, book-wise. Environmental knowledge, mostly though directly lived experience, how to make a living, and where to look for a little comfort or shelter. One's education is supposed to make you strong, agile, versatile, and happy. And yes, it is supposed to contribute to your happiness. If ever someone tells you that she is going to ask you to spend most of your time jumping through hoops, stop and think about it. What hoops? Whose hoops? Why hoops? Oh, you all know where that comes from. There's a man with a whip and a hoop on fire, and he's probably in a funny outfit, and he's probably part of a circus. And for the purposes of this little cliched cartoon, you're a lion. And maybe being a lion is the only thing about this little story that's any good at all. I mean, I'd like to be a lion sometimes. I'm assuming you're here this morning because you've chosen to be here. You aren't here because someone told you you had to be here. And I chose to have the good fortune of serving to welcome you. It's awe-inspiring to be here with you. I'm assuming your personal, individual, private free will allows you to exercise your right to choose how to spend your time. And here's something I learned about fish. Flounders. A flounder, when it's born, is born on a vertical axis, just like all other little fish swimming in the water. And then slowly, as it grows, it starts to lean to one side or another, so it gets to be a big flounder like the kind you're all aware of. And as it grows, the eye, which is at the bottom, looking at the bottom of the pond or the stream or river it's in, begins to migrate around so that it winds up having both its eyes on one side of its body, so it can use both eyes. And that to me has always been a kind of great picture of nature at work, making use and good use of what we have. And also I like picturing the flounder's eye migrating around its body. It's good. So it's about a story to me, though, about eyes deciding where to be and what to see, and minds deciding where to be and what to think. When I was asked to say something about what I'd be saying to you this morning, I said something about forgetting all about everything you've learned and begin opening up to learning new things. That's maybe what was on my mind then. And it's still on my mind, and now more ways than I know. For a pretty long time in our lives, most of us don't have to choose much. We're born where our parents choose to birth us. We learn their language and languages. We assume their habits and ways of living. They dress us. They take us around. We look as if we're choosing, but whoever it is taking care of us when we're little, they are fairly often choosing for us. You didn't pick your crib or your bed. You don't pick your family, and they didn't pick you either. Did you have an imaginary friend? Here's a little story about one boy's imaginary friend. His imaginary friend refused to play with him or have anything to do with him. Why did this boy imagine a friend who would not be his friend? Well, when he was older and he told this story, he asked himself why, and he said, well, when I was growing up, the grown-ups all around me were mostly always saying, maybe next time. Thank you, but I'm not free. No, we already have plans. Sorry, I'm busy. And so he made up a friend who acted just like that. And I think it's really sweet that he told that story to me later on, and he kept it in his heart, you know. Turns out even a baby is a stranger. A sometimes welcome stranger, sometimes a tolerated one, sometimes a somewhat scary one, sometimes all of these and more. Remember, even though you can't remember, your parents are no different than you. They are just other human beings. Our choices are limited to the set of things our locations and parents offer us. Your choices are really limited, unless you imagine they aren't. You imagine your way through or around or past or over everything that limits you. There's an old concept I like a lot. It's called a false door. A false door is an image of a door put on a crypt or a tomb or any kind of a building. And it's a door that's only an image. And so the only way through that door is by using your imagination. And I love the image of the door on anything that allows you to remember that by means of your imagination, you can move through anything. Now, I don't know always why you want to go where you want to go, but everybody makes choices. The important thing is a false door is one you can go only through by means of your imagination. You can go through that door. I guess this means to me that we should all carry a false door with us at all times, and we should stand it up whenever it looks as if someone or something is telling us, keep out, you can't get in, go elsewhere. What's in here is not for you. Here's a story about one man's eyes and what they wanted to see. Since all of you go to schools in Massachusetts, and probably a lot of you are from here, you're bound to have run into stories about Ralph Waldo Emerson. You know, and maybe even enjoyed playing Where's Waldo sometime. But And Emerson's great, but I'm not going to tell you the greatest things about him. I'm going to tell you a little tiny story about what he did. When he married very young, as people did in his day, and his first young wife died very early on. And it broke his heart, and he grieved, and he was miserable. So on the anniversary of her death, 1 year afterwards, he went out to the cemetery in Concord, and he dug her up. And he looked at her. He just wanted to look at her. It sounds like a gruesome or gory or kind of weird thing to do, and I don't have anything to say about what it means that he did it. I just think it's amazing that he did it. So now comes the sequence of quotations that I need to do before I get close to ending. So Emerson did say this. He said, young men and women grow up in libraries reading Cicero, Locke, and Bacon, not realizing that Cicero, Locke, and Bacon were young men in libraries when they wrote their great books. Obviously, you all know that quote because you're here today. I mean, you're behaving as if you understand it intrinsically. So the next thing I'll say is your will begins to feel like your will as you start to get older, like maybe 7, 8, 9. And you feel what a powerful thing your will really is. Maybe the most powerful thing you've yet experienced. And you want to use it. And you want to see how it feels to make your own choices, to exercise your free will. At first, this seems to have to do with almost nothing but food. And I will put this in my mouth or not. And toys, do I want to touch the red block or the blue triangle? You don't even get to pick your own soundtrack. You listen to what your parents listen to. They may seem to be picking out age-appropriate music for you, but their choices have been limited most likely to their experience and most likely by society's stereotypes about what a child needs or wants. You may be thinking about how you're going to continue your own educations, because in all likelihood, these will determine, if not define, who you will wind up becoming as you make your way into the world. And that knowledge, if you let it really sink in, is terrifying, or it can be. And as bland as it is, and as terribly routine, oh, some of you will not find out at all what you want, and some of you will be disillusioned, and some of you won't have time to think about it anyway. And some of you will wonder if you made the right choices, and you'll recognize that you have a somewhat limited life term, and you'll wonder if you're using your time as well as it can be used. Crudely and as simply as possible, it sometimes seems as if once we are born, we then spend the rest of our lives trying to figure out what to do with our time. And what you choose to do with it will make every difference in terms of the quality and the thrill of being alive. Stay with you. You may be sometimes finding time to wonder about a lot of things if you're going to fill your life with as much life as possible. People can forget to be curious. How you take care of this fine thing you have, your curiosity, will probably determine if you have a good life or not. And here's another little bitty story. It amounts to very little, really. But somebody told me one time, Dara, stop having so many ideas. And they were probably right. But it still seemed difficult to take as something to get anywhere with. And anyway, I didn't know how to do it. I couldn't stop. So instead, I went and found another quotation to support me. This is said by Linus Pauling, a great chemist, peace activist, author, Nobel Prize in Chemistry, Nobel Peace Prize, and he said, the best way to have a good idea is to have lots of ideas. So I felt pretty good about that. And another quote by a scientist who I really love and has always made really important to me is Louis Pasteur, who said at some point in his mighty career, he said, chance favors the prepared mind. And that's a brilliant, beautiful idea and concept to carry around with you, because you need to have good luck and chances need to happen, but you have to have a mind prepared to recognize them when you find them and when they cross your path. So I want to say too, though, when you miss a chance, don't regret it, because regret is one of the truly wasted human emotions. By now, each of you have probably regretted something. Regret rarely gets anyone anywhere, except perhaps feeling sorry for oneself. Another regrettable emotion. You can't feel sorry for yourself. It is so unattractive. And besides, there are thousands of other things than yourself to feel sorry for. If you find yourself feeling sorry for yourself, consider it practice. And then go find something as fast as you can to feel sorry for immediately. So if one of the questions now is how to have a prepared mind, or how to prepare a mind, that's what you're doing here today. How to have lots of ideas when you've just decided that you have too many ideas. It gets confusing. So one of our least appreciated virtues is patience. Patience is such a worthy attribute. See if you can find some. Preparing a mind does not mean cramming it full of a lot of information, though some information is really necessary. Where the light switch is, why living east of one's workplace is a good idea, understanding what gossip and trash talk is and what it can do. And third thing to recognize is that human beings seek acknowledgement of various kind. Some want public recognition, some private, some a mix. Go out there and recognize some human significance. That's exactly what you're doing today. Everywhere around you and for the rest of the day. And I hope it's really meaningful to all of you. I think that's what you're doing here. And your hard work, desire, and ambition should help you go out there and be curious about one another's work. And practice asking one another true questions. Mean your question when you ask them. And be fearless about your ideas. Now, because as Alex told you, I am a poet, I'm going to end by reading you a poem by a poet who teaches here at UMass with me, James Tate. And it's a poem. If poetry seems foreign to you, or if you love it, it's going to be fine, because he means every word he says. He's no tricks. You'll see. It's about having a life and getting a job. It's called The Ice Cream Man. I answered the ad in the paper. I had been unemployed for 9 months and was desperate. At the interview, the man said, "Do you have much experience climbing tall mountains?" "Absolutely, I climb them all the time. If I see a tall mountain, I have to climb it immediately," I said. "What about swimming long distances? In rough ocean waters, perhaps in a storm," he said. "I'm like a fish. You can't stop me. I could just keep going in all kinds of weather," I said. "Could you fly a glider at night and land in a wheat field, possibly under enemy fire?" he said. "Nothing could come more naturally to me," I said. "How are you with explosives? Would a large building, say 20 stories high, present you with much difficulty?" he said. "Certainly not. I pride myself on a certain expertise," I said. "And I take it you are fully acquainted with the latest in rocket launchers and landmines," he said. "I even own a few myself for personal use. They're definitely no problem for me," I said. "Now, Mr. Strafford, or may I call you Stephen, what you'll be doing is driving one of our ice cream trucks, selling ice cream to all the little kids in the neighborhood. But sometimes things get tricky, and we like all our drivers to be well trained and well equipped to face any eventuality. You know, some fathers can get quite irate if you're out of their kid's favorite flavor, or if the kid drops the cone." "I understand," I said. "I won't hesitate to take appropriate action," I said. And there are certain neighborhoods where you're under advisement to expect the worst: sneak attacks, gang tactics, bodies dropping from trees, arising out of manholes, blockades, machine gun fire, launched explosive flamethrowers, and that kind of thing. You can still do a little business there if you're on your toes. Do you see what I'm saying, he said? No problem. I know those kinds of neighborhoods, but as you say, kids still want their ice cream and I won't let them down. Good, Stephen, I think you're gonna like this job. It's exciting and challenging. Well, of course, we have lost a few drivers over the years, but mostly it was because they weren't paying attention. It's what I call the Santa Claus complex. They thought they were there just to make the kids happy, but there's a lot more to it than that. One of our best drivers had to level half the city once. Of course, that was an extreme case, but he did what needed to be done. We'll count on you, Stephen, to be able to make that kind of decision. You'll have all your weapons loaded and ready to go in a moment's notice. You'll have your escape plans with you at all times, he said. Yes, sir, I'll be ready at all times, I said. And as you know, some of the ice cream is lethal. So that will require a quick judgment call on your part as well. Mistakes will be made, but try to keep them at a minimum, otherwise the front office becomes flooded with paperwork, he said. I can assure you that I will use it only when I deem it absolutely necessary, I said. Well, Stephen, I look forward to you joining our team. They're mostly crack professionals, ex-Green Berets and Navy SEALs and that kind of thing. At the end of the day, you've made all those kids happy, but you've also thinned out the bad seeds and made our city a safer place to be, he said. He sat there smiling with immense pride. How will I know which flavor is lethal, I said. Experiment, he said. I looked stunned. Then we both started laughing. Thank you all so much.
Thank you, Dara. That was just wonderful. I really enjoyed it. Before we begin, I have a few thank yous. I would like all the faculty who are here today from near and far who supported their students who are presenting today to please stand. All faculty, please don't be shy. Get up there. I recognize